Nathan Lucas has been a very unlucky member of the Toronto Blue Jays in the last couple of seasons. There was just no room for him last year because the Blue Jays were looking to contend, and he was kind of phased out. He wasn't going to be the fourth outfielder on that squad. And this year, when the Blue Jays started to call up a bunch of minor league prospects and a bunch of guys that were finally getting a chance to play every single day in the big leagues, like Ernie Clement, like Ryan Burr. Nathan Lucas was supposed to be one of those guys, but he went down with injury. He finally got the call last night, and he's probably going to be with the team from now until the rest of the season. And he made a good impression on the Blue Jays in their game yesterday against the Twins. So I'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. Welcome in everybody to Jays Digest. I'm your host Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Goss. Now, we don't usually do this, but before we get into the video today, what we witnessed the other day with Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Gaudreau passing away, it truly trumped anything that we saw in the world of baseball that happened or anything that happened with the Blue Jays. So Nick and I want to take a moment and just offer our sincerest thoughts and condolences to the Gaudreau family. It was a terrible tragedy where those killings took place, and it's a reminder to each and every one of our listeners to make responsible choices to not put the lives of others in danger. So when you decide to drive drunk, it's rarely you who pays the ultimate price. It's those that are on the receiving end of that. And unfortunately, it was the Goodrow brothers the day of or the day before their sister's wedding. Just a truly sickening, stunning, shocking turn of events that happened. And we want to extend our gratitude and our thoughts and prayers to the Goodrow family because it's truly devastating what happened.
Yeah, biggest condolences to them. The video yesterday was recorded before that happened, so that's why we're doing it today, and it wasn't in yesterday's video. But yeah, hug your loved ones. But Peter, let's dive right into it now. Obviously, you mentioned it. It was a weird day in sports yesterday, but some stuff did happen surrounding the Blue Jays. Specifically, they made a few moves here, and let's dive right into it. You can see this here. Nathan Lucas recalled from AAA and was active yesterday, and Stuart Baroa was optioned to AAA. So there's a few things to go over here, and we spoke about it a bit off camera. And we were talking about Nathan Lucas a bit earlier on in the season when he was in AAA, and he was absolutely mashing for the Buffalo Bisons before he had a freak injury, and that took him out for months. But Peter, now that he has a chance here with the Blue Jays, he is 29 years old, and I know some fans out there. I'm curious to see what you think about it. The move isn't fully, obviously they're calling up a bunch of the young guys and all those things, but he's 29. He's not a prospect anymore. I think this is the Blue Jays' chance to see what and kind of his audition for next year and going forward in the major leagues when in theory they're going to be trying to compete. But it's interesting that they sent down a younger guy in Stuart Baroa, who I also don't think has a future as a regular MLBer at the very least every single day, maybe a fourth outfield guy. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on the Lucas call up? He's 29. His contract is up soon with the Blue Jays, and it's a bit of an interesting choice, but I guess to reward him for playing so many years with the Bisons, kind of like they did last year as well.
Yeah. Well, first off, for him, it's great because he gets
Yeah.
that major league payday and he's able to provide a little bit more for his family. We know the rigors of being a minor leaguer. It's not all glitz and glamour, right? You don't make that big time amount of money and you're riding the bus. You're a professional ball player, but you don't get the full experience of being a professional ball player. It's not as glamorous as a lot of us make it out to be. So good for Nathan Lucas. That's the first point, that it's just great for his personal career and development. But he has a chance here, I think, Nick, to be the fourth outfielder for next year
Yeah.
because he's always been sort of the odd man out. The Jays have had a lot of similar players of his profile in the last couple of years. I'm talking about Dalton Varsho, Kevin Kiermaier, but now there's no more Kevin Kiermaier. So Nathan Lucas is very good defensively. He's a left-handed hitter, and I think there's a place for him on this roster for next season. And we see it all the time. Guys can be late bloomers. They just don't have the chance to get those everyday at bats and everyday playing time in the big leagues. Now, I'm not going to say Ernie Clement has cemented himself as an everyday player in the big leagues, but look at what's happening this year. He's already gotten more at bats this season than he has had in his previous years in the major leagues, and it's paying dividends for the Blue Jays. He's playing every day. He's been one of their more reliable contact guys in the lineup, and he's been a good player. Do I think he's an everyday guy on a great team? No, I'm not saying that, but there's definitely a place for Ernie Clement on this roster for next season if they want to continue with him in that utility role. And I think the same thing can be said about Nathan Lucas, who is, like we said, very good defensively, has a little bit of power in his bat, and was mashing in AAA before he got hurt, like you mentioned in the opening there, Nick. So I definitely think there's a place for him on this roster going into next season. Is it a full-time role? No, but I don't think he'll care about that because you're still getting that major league money and you're still able to contribute to a team pretty frequently if you're Nathan Lucas going into next year.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. I think it is auditioning. Again, you look at his stats this year in AAA, an 871 OPS, last season a 953 OPS. Like he's been great at the AAA level. Now, is he a guy who's maybe a 4A type player? It's possible. We see his defensive abilities. If you watched the game yesterday, you saw his great catch. Welcome to the majors, Nathan Lucas. So it's like the Jays are auditioning a bunch of different guys. You think about Joey Loperfido, that's another guy. He's a younger prospect. When you're talking about fourth outfielders in the next season, I think there's a good world where Loperfido starts at left field every day, Varsho at center, and then Springer and right. But Springer's getting older. There's obviously a lot of different question marks there. So when it comes to the fourth outfielder spot, I think Nathan Lucas kind of fits the bill for what the Jays are looking for. He's a left-handed hitter. He has okay power, at least at the AAA level, and he's a very good defender. So I think ultimately they're trying out a bunch of guys this year, and it's interesting that they aren't going with someone a little younger, but at some point, they're playing almost all the young guys they can. At some point, you have to kind of go out and have some sort of veteran guys. And you mentioned the Ernie Clement thing. It's a good comparison. They're both similar age. They're both blooming late. Nathan Lucas has been in the minors, just like Ernie Clement was for a very long time, and then given an everyday role. Kind of Ernie Clement this year forced into an everyday role because of injuries and then trading the whole team. And he turned into what is at the very least a still very serviceable and good MLB player, even if he's not an everyday, a regular next season. But seeing what they can get, because at this point the Jays probably aren't going to make the playoffs, but they're at least going to have some big decisions to make in the offseason. And maybe it alters their decision between signing a fourth outfielder like Kevin Kiermaier they did last year, or saving the money and going internal here.
Right. And all you need sometimes is an opportunity. And I think that's what Nathan Lucas needs here. He picked up one of their hits, one of their few hits that they had yesterday against Pablo Lopez and Yohan Duran. So, look, I don't think this is a franchise-altering call-up that they're making here. That's not what I'm trying to say. But if there are no additions in the outfield for next season, I don't think there are four better guys in the organization than Nathan Lucas. Obviously, Springer, Varsho, and Loperfido are going to be ahead of him in the pecking order. But apart from that, I mean, I wasn't thrilled with what I saw out of Stuart Baroa. I don't think Will Wagner can play outfield. Ernie Clement also doesn't really play there. And David Schneider, he's kind of all over. Like he plays some infield, he plays some outfield as well, and maybe he'll have a role as like a lefty specialist, like a guy who can come in against lefties. But Nathan Lucas is someone who has played every day in AAA and he's performed very well there. And he's a veteran too. You do need some veterans, especially if you want to compete going into next season. So even though he doesn't have the seasoning at the major league level, he's definitely been around and he's a lifer. He's a baseball lifer. And I'm glad that he's finally getting his opportunity here. Hopefully he can make the most of it and show the Blue Jays that he belongs on their roster next season.
Yeah, at the very least, it's great for him. Like you mentioned, the money, like phenomenal for him, especially after all the years he spent in the minors. One quick thing before we wrap up. This is their plan going forward to add a pitcher and a position player when the rosters do expand tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe we see Jake Bloss. Maybe we see someone else. It's going to be very interesting. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. And do you think Nathan Lucas will factor into the Jays' regular roster and opening day roster next year? Let us know. See you tomorrow.